How did the Buddha attain complete enlightenment? Welcome back everyone to Mind Podcast. There are 4 stages or levels of enlightenment: stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. The arahant is the one who is fully enlightened with perfect and complete wisdom. A stream enterer is someone who has entered the stream of the noble path, from which there is no return, having set foot on the journey to higher and ultimate enlightenment. The stream enterer is someone who has seen the Dharma, who has attained right view, and is certain to reach enlightenment and full liberation within 7 lifetimes, including the current one. The once returner is a noble being who has advanced from the stream enterer, having seen most of the hindrances of desire and ill will fade away, so much so that they can reach full enlightenment in only 1 more lifetime. Therefore, once returner means they will only be reborn 1 more time. According to the commentary on the Anguttara Nikaya, all once returners are reborn in the Tusita heaven and will return to the human realm 1 last time before attaining arahantship. The non-returner is a higher noble being who has completely eradicated the hindrances of desire and ill will. If they do not attain full enlightenment as an arahant in this lifetime, they will be reborn in one of the pure realms, pure lands, to continue their practice and attain arahantship there. They will never be reborn in the human realm again. The arahant, the fully enlightened one, has completed their practice and has nothing more to do or achieve. This lifetime is their final existence. The 7 sailors on the shipwreck. The 4 levels of enlightenment were further illustrated by the Buddha in an example about 7 sailors on a shipwreck in the ocean, which has been recorded in the sutras. While the Buddha did not directly describe the shipwreck and the sailors, I add these details to make it easier to explain, without distorting the meaning of the Buddha's teaching. The 7 sailors were stranded in the sea after their ships sank. The first sailor drowned and died immediately. The second swam for a while, but eventually drowned as well. The third stayed afloat, keeping his head above the water. The fourth also kept his head above water and started looking around for a rescue island in sight. The fifth was also floating and had found the island, swimming toward it. The sixth was swimming, had also seen the island, and was walking toward the shore. The seventh had seen the island, swam toward it, stepped onto the shore, and was now resting safely. The Buddha explained the meaning of this example as follows. The first person who drowned immediately represents someone with a lot of bad karma, who after death descends directly into the lower realms, hell, hungry ghosts, or animals. The second person, who swam for a bit before drowning, represents someone who once had 7 powers but lost them. Those 7 powers are moral shame, fear of the consequences of evil actions, faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. The last 5 powers are fundamental spiritual faculties needed for practice. Because this person did not put in the effort to practice, they lost all these faculties and, like the first person, will also descend into the lower realms after death. The third person, who remained afloat, represents someone who still possesses the 7 spiritual faculties. This person keeps their head above the waves, which represent the ups and downs of life. The fourth person, who stayed afloat and saw the island from afar, represents someone who has entered the stream of the noble path, that is, the stream enterer, who has seen the safe destination of nirvana. The fifth person, swimming toward the shore, represents the once returner, who is overcoming the hindrances of desire and ill will and is on the path toward enlightenment. The sixth person, who has reached the shore and is stepping onto it, represents the non-returner, who is almost at the shore of full enlightenment and liberation. This noble being has eradicated all forms of desire and ill will, craving and hatred from the world of the 5 senses. This saint has almost completed their practice and is standing close to nirvana. The seventh person, who has fully stepped onto the shore and is resting safely, is the fully enlightened being who has completely eradicated all hindrances, craving, hatred, and ignorance, and all other fetters. These are like the arahants. This clear analogy from the Buddha contains valuable insights into the 4 levels of enlightenment. First, the Buddha emphasized the importance of the 5 spiritual faculties, including faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. Faith, strength, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom which are essential for practice and entering the stream of the noble path. Meanwhile, the Buddha also added two necessary qualities, a sense of moral shame and fear of karmic retribution. These two qualities were called by the Buddha the guardians of the world, because they help protect a person's virtue. Second, this example highlights the difference between the two stages of enlightenment, stream enterer and arahant. The stream enterer has only seen nirvana, whereas the arahant has reached it. In another example, the Buddha compared the stream enterer to someone who has seen the water in a deep well, but does not yet have enough rope and a bucket to draw the water. The arahant, on the other hand, has the full rope and bucket, and has drawn the water from the well and quenched their thirst. Third, the above example shows that the stream enterer must continue practicing through the stages of once-returner and non-returner to progress to full enlightenment. Delusion and the purification of thoughts. Of course, the path from stream enterer to the fruit of non-returner is also the Noble Eightfold Path. At this stage of the Noble Path, the Eightfold Path truly deserves its name as noble, holy, because it is pursued and practiced by noble beings to the very end. The first part, right view, has now been perfected. Once the foundation stone of the Noble Eightfold Path has been laid by the stream enterer, the rest of the path can lead to completion. From there, the primary goal of practice for the stream enterer is to perfect the second part of the Eightfold Path, which is right thought. Right thought means correct thinking, proper mental conduct, and right intention. Thoughts of sensual desire, ill will, and violence must now be completely eradicated. Effort, mindfulness, and concentration must be combined to purify the mind. It is only after entering the noble path, only after becoming a stream enterer, that one can gradually uproot the remaining residues of defilements and impurities of the mind that have always dominated and distorted thought throughout countless lifetimes. For this reason, only disciples who have attained the stream enterer stage are called Sekha, a learner, one in training, by the Buddha, meaning that only from this point does the practice truly occur in a proper manner and truly lead to enlightenment. To further explain what needs to be practiced and why, I will add here the Buddha's teachings on delusion. We can refer to it as delusion, misconception, error, false belief, or illusion. Here, the process of perception consists of three parts: views, perception, and thoughts. The Buddha observed how views guide perceptions, perceptions guide thoughts, and thoughts guide views again. Thus, incorrect views, wrong view, will distort perception to align with those views. Perceptions are the building blocks of thoughts. Therefore, from incorrect perceptions, people build incorrect thoughts. Then those thoughts are used to adjust a person's views. As a result, these incorrect thoughts continue to reinforce the original incorrect view. And so, this cycle of wrong views leading to wrong perceptions, and then wrong thoughts continues seemingly endlessly. The unfortunate and unseen part of this phenomenon is that few people are aware of this truth unfolding in their minds. Crude perceptions are the initial raw evidence provided by the senses, and they assume those perceptions are always accurate. This wonderfully explains why everyone thinks they are right. For example, when one hates someone, a wrong view, their perception of that person and their thoughts about that person are also formed based on that hatred. In the end, those thoughts only further reinforce that view. Hatred. The clearest example is of people who, after divorcing, often carry hatred and their view of their former spouse as evil. From there, their perceptions and thoughts about that person are also very negative, even going so far as to refer to that person with very harsh and false terms, as you may have heard. Another example. There are people who, due to their religious beliefs, often claim that in their sleep, or at some point, they have encountered their God. This might also be due to their worldview about religion, influencing their perceptions and thoughts. I've read and heard many Buddhists in China and Hong Kong recount that they have encountered manifestations of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, Guanyin. Similarly, some Christians might claim that they have met Jesus Christ or the Virgin Mary. All of this could be explained by their religious worldview. Naturally, it is rare for a Buddhist to dream of someone they believe to be Jesus. And likewise, it is uncommon for followers of another religion to claim they dreamt of a deity and assumed it was the Buddha. Worldviews shape perceptions and thoughts accordingly. The four aspects of ignorance. The Buddha was particularly concerned with the distortion in perception, delusion, misconception, that creates ignorance about a self, about pleasure, about permanence, and about beauty. For instance, when a person is still attached to the belief that there is a self, a soul, residing inside, this wrong view bends perception to affirm that there is a real self. As a result, we always think of things in terms of self, mine, and myself, which only reinforces this wrong view of self-attachment. Everyone learns the Buddha's teachings on non-self, but sadly, even these teachings spoken by the Buddha himself do not easily shake the deeply ingrained wrong views that have resided in the human mind for countless ages. It requires a revolutionary change in perception to establish a new way of understanding, and this can only be achieved through the deep states of meditation, jhana. Only through deep meditation can practitioners truly see correctly and perceive correctly the truth of non-self as it actually is. In summary, the Buddha taught that ignorance consists of the following four aspects. A. Perceiving non-self as a self. B. Perceiving the impermanent as permanent. C. Perceiving suffering as pleasure. D. Perceiving the ugly or impure as beautiful. Each of these erroneous perceptions manifests in varying degrees of awareness, views, perceptions, and thoughts. This is the problem of humanity. These four layers of ignorance can be broken at the level of views, right at the point of clinging to wrong views. Practitioners can use the deep meditative state of jhana to overcome all five hindrances and generate a kind of unbiased, undistorted perception. At that point, they will see phenomena as they truly are. Thus, right view is established upon entering the stream. The stream enterer is someone who no longer holds the four wrong views of A. Taking non-self to be self, taking the impermanent to be permanent, C. Taking suffering to be pleasure, D. Taking the impure or ugly to be beautiful. However, this does not mean that the stream enterer no longer has thoughts of desire or anger. At this level, they still have some amount of desire and anger. When the stream enterer's views have been purified into right view, it does not mean that their perception and thinking are immediately pure and entirely correct. For the learners, Seika, sometimes their perceptions and thoughts are positively influenced by the right view realized when entering the stream, but at other times their perceptions and thoughts are still affected by lingering wrong views, previously held wrong views, which are deeply rooted tendencies and habits that have been ingrained for a long time. It takes time to unravel these habitual tendencies and heavy shackles, at the latest within 7 lifetimes from entering the stream. It is not uncommon for stream enterers to recognize lustful thoughts when they arise and immediately regard them as distractions. Loss of mindfulness. In other words, they understand that at those moments, their mind is temporarily disconnected from right view and has fallen back into the deeply ingrained habitual tendencies of their previous lives. The entire process of purifying perception and thoughts of lust and anger is the path of the stream enterer progressing to the fruit of non-returner. Technically, this means maintaining the Dharma that was realized upon entering the stream and keeping the Dharma always present through continuous, uninterrupted mindfulness. Continuous, unbroken mindfulness can only be well maintained through the deep meditative state of jhana and diligent effort, combined with the support of moral virtue. This is the formula: effort, morality, concentration, wisdom. This is akin to the act of swimming to the shore, as described in the example of the 7 shipwrecked sailors. Effort, mindfulness, and jhana concentration gradually dissolve all thoughts of sensual desire, anger, and violence, wrong thoughts, to the point that they can no longer arise. At this stage, the second part of the Noble Eightfold Path, right thought, has been perfected. The practitioner becomes a non-returner. Now, all that remains is to take a short walk to completely step out of the water and fully reach the shore. The non-returner, after the first 2 parts of the Noble Eightfold Path have been perfected, the next 3, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, must also be completed. This order of practice is due to the fact that all bodily actions and speech arise from thoughts, right thought. Therefore, when thoughts are purified from sensual desire and ill will, becoming right thought, speech and actions are also cleansed of those two impurities. Additionally, the Buddha stated that a non-returner has fully perfected morality, sila, fully perfected concentration, samadhi, but has not yet completely perfected wisdom, pining. Thus, the last three parts of the Noble Eightfold Path, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, collectively known as the meditation group, must also be perfected. By this point, the non-returner has cleansed, purified the entire path. All the factors have been completed and are ready. The only task left is to realize nirvana. So what does a non-returner look like? In the scriptures, most of the detailed descriptions of non-returners refer to lay Buddhists. In the Anguttara Nikaya, a layperson named Uga in the city of Vesali had 4 wives and still attained the fruit of non-returner. Afterward, he told his wives that he could no longer be a husband and advised them to either stay in the house as sisters, return to their families, or marry someone else, according to their choice. By definition, non-returners naturally live a celibate life and no longer engage in any sexual contact with the opposite gender. The scriptures also recount how Uga's natural humility as a non-returner led him to always maintain the highest respect for all monks and nuns in the Sangha, even those who had not yet attained the noble fruit like he had. In the Khuddaka Nikaya, there is an account of a layman named Siddha who also attained the fruit of non-returner, and he could enter the 4 jhanas at will for as long as he wished. In the Digha Nikaya, a potter named Gadikara was also a non-returner. He was an exemplary practitioner, but the only thing that prevented him from becoming a monk was his duty to care for his blind parents. He upheld the 5 precepts, lived celibately, ate only 1 meal in the morning, and had no dealings with money. In this way, he practically lived like a novice monk. After crafting a few pottery jars, he would say, "Whoever needs these, take them, and if you feel inclined, give me some food in return." What a beautiful heart. This was how he sustained himself and cared for his blind parents. In the Anguttara Nikaya, there is a record of a laywoman named Nandamata, who was a non-returner. When the king's soldiers killed her only son right before her eyes, she harbored no anger toward the murderers. This noble woman also had the ability to enter the jhanas at any time and remain in them for as long as she wished. Thus, we see that even lay people who are non-returners behave as though they no longer belong to this world. They have almost completely let go, nearly to the point of transcendence. Let's return to the topic of delusion or misperception as explained earlier. For the non-returner, ignorance still operates, but only at the level of perception and thought. Their view, right view, however, has forever transcended ignorance since entering the stream. Therefore, non-returners may still have perceptions and thoughts involving sensual desire, but these are not the desires of the 5-sense world, the 5 sensual pleasures. These desires belong to the world of jhana meditative states and the attachments to the formless attainments. You can refer to the list of fetters. Furthermore, non-returners may still perceive and think with the notion of I am. These perceptions and thoughts give rise to the doer, the self, which in turn creates dissatisfaction and unrest in the mind. Because as long as there are perceptions or thoughts about an I am, the practitioner of the mind will still feel dissatisfaction and unrest due to desires and concerns for the self, fearing that this self is not fulfilled and at peace. For this reason, non-returners are said to still be bound by certain fetters, specifically the 5 heavy fetters: ignorance, attachment to the jhana realms, attachment to the formless attainments, identity view, pride, and restlessness, anxiety. To clarify further, in practice, non-returners need to continue following the noble path, utilizing the combination of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration to maintain in their mind the wisdom that was first realized when they entered the stream, maintaining the stream entry wisdom. Specifically, they must hold the understanding that suffering exists even in the jhana realms of the form world, and that suffering also permeates the formless attainments. The realization of this fact arises clearly enough to give rise to dispassion, turning the mind away from and abandoning even these supernormal states of existence, because they are still impermanent. Maintaining the wisdom about the nature of suffering in the form and formless meditative states. They must also continuously maintain in their mind the teaching of non-self until this teaching becomes firmly and continuously established in the mind at all levels of perception and thought, maintaining the wisdom about non-self. When all of this is perfected, the mind becomes completely purified. The practitioner attains arahantship. As summarized in a simple verse from the scriptures, do no evil, cultivate what is good, purify your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Ultimately, the practice of Buddhism is about cultivating and purifying the mind. Rapid enlightenment. Sometimes there are noble beings who progress straight from stream enterer to full enlightenment without passing through the stages of once returner and non-returner. Using the example of the 7 shipwrecked sailors, a rapid enlightenment case could be compared to someone who swims directly to the shore without needing to walk from the shallow water to the beach. It's as if they swam close to shore and a powerful wave lifted them up and carried them straight to land. One example of such rapid enlightenment is that of Ananda, the Buddha's close attendant. After the Buddha's parinirvana, the Sangha held a council to compile the Buddha's teachings into scriptures. This council consisted of 500 monks, 499 of whom were arahants, but Ananda had not yet attained arahantship. The night before the council's opening, Ananda tried meditating throughout the night to attain full enlightenment. However, as dawn approached, he felt he had not made any progress. He gave up and decided to rest. And just as he was lying down with his feet off the ground, he fully realized enlightenment, becoming the 500th arahant in the council that compiled the scriptures. This was a special case. I can use the following example of the donkey and the carrot to explain this case. In old Europe, donkeys were often used to pull carts. Donkeys are known to be stubborn, so when pulling a heavily loaded cart, people used a trick to motivate them. They would hang a carrot in front of the donkey's face, just beyond reach, so the donkey would try to catch the carrot and thus pull the cart forward. But the donkey could never eat the carrot, as it moved along with the cart at the same speed. However, the donkey who practices the Buddha's path knows how to catch the carrot. They run at full speed, putting in all their effort and concentration. Of course, the carrot moves at full speed too. At the moment they reach their fastest pace, the Buddhist donkey lets go of all desire. They stop suddenly, and by natural inertia, the carrot swings forward. The carrot swings further out, but the Buddhist donkey waits patiently, with faith and wisdom, and the continuous practice of mindfulness. The carrot will swing back toward their mouth. Observing patiently, the donkey watches the carrot swing forward and then back with its greatest amplitude. The donkey simply waits patiently, doing nothing while the carrots swing back and forth. Eventually, when the oscillation reaches its peak, the carrots break free and fall behind. The donkey only needs to open its mouth and enjoy chewing them. That is how the Buddhist donkeys know how to apply the Dharma to obtain those carrots. In the story of Venerable Ananda, he spent the whole night striving to grasp the carrot of nirvana through continuous meditation. However, the harder he chased, the more elusive enlightenment became. He gave up and took a short rest, and nirvana swung even further away. But just as he was lying down, the carrot of nirvana swung back and fell right into his mouth. According to this famous story, Venerable Ananda attained enlightenment at the very moment his head touched the pillow, tasting the sweet fruit of nirvana. Arahant, the fully enlightened one. Complete enlightenment means that the person no longer holds the view of a self and does not perceive anything based on the idea of a self or think of anything as self or mine. Because there is no longer any notion of self or mine, an arahant does not possess or accumulate belongings, personal items, or wealth like others. I recall my teacher, Ajahn Chah, at the peak of his fame as an accomplished monk, who was still very lively and received many precious gifts from renowned figures, generals, prime ministers, and wealthy business people, but he never kept anything. Once, he called me to his room, and I was truly astonished to see only a sleeping mat, a few robes, and an alms bowl. It would have taken him less than a minute to pack up all his belongings. The room looked as if no one lived there, reflecting the mind of an arahant. 9 things an arahant cannot do. There are 9 things, by nature and by definition, that an arahant cannot do: accumulating wealth, intentionally killing, stealing, engaging in sexual relations, deliberately lying or speaking falsely, acting out of greed, acting out of anger, acting out of ignorance, and acting out of fear. For example, because all greed has been eradicated, there is not the slightest trace of lust left regarding sexual matters. All arahants are entirely free from lust. Moreover, an arahant has completely eradicated the three forms of identity view: pride, I am better, I am worse, and I am equal, and has also eliminated self-doubt or inferiority, which is seen as a reversed form of identity view. Essentially, an arahant no longer perceives things in terms of I am. They see their body and mind as just a non-personal, natural process. Therefore, to them, it makes no sense to compare one process to another, just as it is meaningless to compare the value of a log to the value of a mango. Regarding these three forms of identity view, when one attains full enlightenment, all comparisons between non-personal processes cease. Even previous complex discussions, such as whether an arahant is superior or inferior to a bodhisattva, also come to an end. An arahant lives as a truth, embodying non-self, beyond all measurement and comparison. Elitism, the idea that the enlightened are the elite of society, has no place among the fully enlightened. They have no concept of it, so how could they think of it? Thus, we can trust in the complete humility of an arahant. The following story from the scriptures illustrates this well. Venerable Sariputta was a renowned arahant, known as the foremost in wisdom. One morning, he was out for alms, but his robe had not been fastened properly. A very young monk noticed and scolded the venerable elder. Instead of retorting, "Who are you to criticize me?" Venerable Sariputta checked his robe. He walked into a bush, adjusted his robe, and returned to thank the young novice as if he were a teacher. This beautiful gesture of humility is a mark of an arahant. Arahants and fame. An arahant, having transcended all perception of the self, has no notion of needing fame. Their mind is liberated, free from any desire to impress anyone. They are also fearless, as they have nothing left to lose, having completely liberated themselves. The following verses from the Theragatha Sutta describe an arahant who is fearless and unshaken. This is the elder Adimutta, and here is the exchange between him and the bandit. Bandit, all those we have killed before, whether for sacrifice or robbery, have trembled and wept in fear. But you seem unafraid. Your face even shines calm and serene without weeping when facing the great disaster of death. I no longer suffer in the mind, having left all desires behind. And O chief, I have surpassed all fear as I am no longer bound to life. When the cause of rebirth has been destroyed and wisdom sees all things as they truly are, what is left to fear from death? It is as though a burden has been laid down. For me, the holy life has been well practiced, and the noble path has been fully cultivated. I have no fear of death, just as there is no fear when a disease is cured. For me, the holy life has been well practiced, and the noble path has been fully cultivated. I see life as meaningless and trivial. I have vomited up the poisons I once drank. For one who has crossed to the other shore, there is no clinging. All duties have been completed, and the streams of outward flowing thoughts have ceased. There is only joy at the end of life, like one who escapes the blade at their neck. I have realized the ultimate truth, and the world no longer holds anything that entices me. When death comes without any anxiety, it brings liberation, like being rescued from a burning house. The great hermit has made it clear. Whatever arises, wherever life is achieved, none of it is created by a god. Whoever understands this truth as the Buddha taught, does not cling to life, just like a wise person does not pick up a burning iron ball. For me, there are no thoughts of I have been or I will be. So when mental activities cease, what is there to lament? It is merely the arising of phenomena, just the existence of conditioned processes due to causes. When I have seen them as they truly are, what is there left to fear, O chief? When a person with wisdom looks at the world, it is like someone looking at a pile of dry grass. They see nothing as belonging to them. There is no sorrow, for nothing is mine. I have grown tired of this body. I have become disillusioned with it. Rebirth is no more. This body will dissolve and there will be no new body. Do what you wish, kill me if you like, but whether I am alive or dead, I will neither hate nor care. After hearing these strange, hair-raising words, the bandits put down their swords and said, "Venerable Sir, how have you achieved this, and who is your teacher, whose teachings have guided you to liberation from all sorrow?" Arahant Adimutta, the all-knowing and all-wise one, the conqueror and the victor, the great compassionate one, is my teacher. He is my master and the healer of the world. He taught this incomparable dharma, which leads to cessation, nirvana. Whoever follows his teachings will be freed from all sorrow. After hearing these words, skillfully spoken by the monk, the bandits laid down their swords and weapons. Some abandoned killing and robbery, while others renounced worldly life and became monks. These people followed the Buddha's dharma, developing the factors of enlightenment, the faculties, wisdom, and higher states of mind with joyful hearts. When the faculties were fully perfected, they reached the state of the deathless, nirvana. What motivates the creation of an arahant? People often describe the state of complete enlightenment by listing what an arahant cannot do, but it is equally important to explain the types of behaviors an arahant typically displays. At their core, the behaviors of arahants are expressions of boundless loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. These are the four sublime abodes of the mind, also called the four Brahma Viharas, which continually inspire and manifest in every action of an arahant, whether they are teaching, serving others, eating, sleeping, or performing any task they are asked to do. As for me, I can say that I was incredibly fortunate to live and practice in Thailand from 1974 to 1983, during which time I met arahants. I recall one arahant who was very famous for his supernatural abilities. Psychic powers often accompany the fully enlightened ones, but not always. Specifically, that particular arahant was believed to have the ability to read others' minds. Reflecting on this, I felt a bit hesitant, even fearful, when meeting an arahant like that. After all, the mind of a young practitioner like myself at that time was not exactly something worth an arahant's insight, especially in front of others. But when I actually met this being, who could hardly still be called a sentient being, all my fears disappeared. I felt calm, peaceful, and welcomed, even though I was still an ordinary, flawed person. This is because arahants never look down on others. Their three types of pride, superiority, inferiority, and equality, have been eradicated, and it is incredibly pleasant to be near them. Everything they radiate is compassion and wisdom. Meeting a true arahant is one of the most uplifting and pleasant experiences for anyone. Later, a fellow monk described an arahant using another extraordinary but accurate and logical example. He said that most people seem to surround themselves with sharp, hard spikes for protection, preventing others from getting too close. When they enter a room, people feel uneasy and uncomfortable. Gentler people still protect themselves, but their spikes are softer and duller, causing less harm to others. Lastly, there are those who have no spikes or defenses at all. These are the arahants. They are soft and tender. An arahant is like a wise grandfather, a spiritual father, completely wise and gentle, with absolutely no trace of anger, always caring and full of compassion for others' well-being, as if it were their own. Those who have the opportunity to meet such arahants never want to leave their presence. The end of all suffering, the cessation of suffering. That is what arahants are like, and if you are fortunate enough to meet one, you will experience the happiest person in the world. But what are the internal experiences of an arahant? Have they truly been completely liberated from all suffering? The answer is no, and this might surprise many who are interested. Indeed, arahants have not been entirely freed from all suffering. To explain the difference between an arahant and others, the Buddha used the example of two spears. When a person is struck by one spear or arrow, they naturally experience great pain. But if they are struck by a second spear, the pain is doubled. The two spears or arrows represent physical pain and mental pain. Normally, when someone experiences physical pain, they immediately also experience mental pain. Suffering of the body leads to suffering of the mind. This is like being struck by two arrows at once. However, for arahants and non-returners, when they experience physical suffering, they no longer experience mental suffering. The suffering of the body does not lead to suffering of the mind. It is as though they are struck by only one arrow. While fully enlightened beings have eliminated all mental suffering, they still experience physical suffering. Even the Buddha, while still alive, experienced physical pain. In fact, in the final months of his life, the Buddha said that only when he entered the formless meditation would he be free from physical pain. Of course, physical pain can be significant, but it is small compared to the vast amount of mental suffering that has been eradicated. This is why arahants are the happiest beings still living in this world. Despite this, physical pain is still important, and it is one of the key motivations for them to attain parinibbana, the complete cessation of both the body and mind. For example, there is a story in the scriptures. When asked to explain what she was, the female arahant named Varda described the body-mind process called person. Varaja, that an enlightened being can see within themselves as follows. Only suffering arises, suffering exists and ceases. There is nothing but suffering arising, there is nothing but suffering ceasing. The inner vision of the mind of an arahant like this was also confirmed by the Buddha in the Kachanagota Sutta, where it is recorded that he said, "What arises is simply suffering arising. What ceases is simply suffering ceasing." As explained throughout this book, because suffering permeates every level of existence, even the life of an arahant, this inner renunciation arises within the mind of an arahant. This renunciation propels the body-mind process of the arahant toward complete cessation and final termination. Thus, it must be reiterated that the full enlightenment of a living arahant does not mean the complete cessation of all suffering. The state of a living arahant is called nirvana with remnants. At this stage, the arahant is in the final phase of life, and at this point, they clearly perceive two things. First, they see clearly the cause of samsaric rebirth. It is the craving for sensual pleasures and the craving for existence. Second, they see clearly that these cravings have been completely eradicated. Suffering is present everywhere, even for an arahant who still experiences physical pain. So why would there be any desire to be reborn into worldly lives filled with suffering again? For this reason, arahants are said to have destroyed all the seeds, all the spiritual seeds, vasanas, that continually recreate suffering from one life to the next, and they know with certainty that all of these seeds have been eradicated. This is the exclusive insight of the arahants. Only arahants possess this highest form of knowledge. For them, the only remaining matter is the short time until they reach nirvana without remnants. Another term for this type of nirvana is parinirvana, the complete extinction. These are the words of a verse recorded about the arahant elder Sankhichathera. "I do not long for death, nor do I wish for life. Like a worker waiting for his wages, I wait for my time." Parinirvana. That moment, when arahants receive their wages, is the complete end of all suffering, known as parinirvana. It is the cessation of existence, the end of being. During the period from the attainment of arahantship until parinirvana, arahants provide immense benefit to the world. They set an example by teaching the Dharma, sharing their direct experience of nirvana, and embodying the living Dharma. Among these lives, the 45 years between the Buddha's enlightenment and his parinirvana remain the most glorious era of our world. Those years with the Buddha continue to echo through lands far from the fertile Ganges plain, and their radiance still shines in our present time, 26 centuries later, like a supernova illuminating the heavens across millennia. It has been a long time since our Buddha set the wheel of truth in motion. Throughout centuries of rise and fall, it has been the arahants who have continuously maintained the movement of the Dharma wheel. Just as the Buddha was the first arahant, all arahants simply point the way. And it is up to those who listen to walk that path themselves. The Buddha's path continues to be taught, and many people are still walking it today. There is nothing left. The Buddha and the arahants have completed their teachings and aided all sentient beings in this world. Afterward, all Buddhas and arahants attained parinirvana permanently. The process of suffering arising and suffering ceasing has come to a complete stop, total cessation. What happens next after parinirvana? Immediately after the moment of complete cessation, all-knowing awareness, consciousness, and mind, vijnana, citta, and mano, and all that is known, body, mind, name, form, namarupa, have completely ceased. For them, all expressions and words also come to an end. There is nothing left to say. It even has no meaning to speak of nothing. because nothing is no longer a noun or a label for any entity. How can you know if someone is enlightened? This is a frequently asked question. The answer is, no one can be sure. Only the Buddhas have this ability because it is the sixth of the 10 powers of a Buddha. During the Buddha's time, only the Buddha could confirm someone's enlightenment. Even a great arahant like Venerable Sariputta had to ask the Buddha to clarify this issue. However, while we cannot be certain about someone's enlightenment, we can be sure of who is not enlightened. The 4 stages of enlightenment are clearly defined by specific qualities, and if any of these qualities are absent in a person, that person has not attained that level of enlightenment. Basic signs of enlightenment. For a stream enterer, Sotapanna, the basic signs begin with the 4 qualities of a stream enterer. These are unwavering faith in the Buddha's enlightenment, unwavering faith in the superiority of the Buddha's teachings, Dhamma, unwavering faith in the worthiness of respect and offerings of the noble beings in the Sangha, and noble virtue as a crucial quality of the noble ones. The Kasambhya Sutta also provides more details on virtuous behavior, noting, if a stream enterer breaks any precepts, they naturally report this to their teacher or fellow practitioner and make an effort to restrain themselves from repeating the offense. Additionally, many suttas clearly describe and define the characteristics of a stream enterer. A stream enterer has eradicated the view of a personal self, meaning they no longer identify any of the 5 aggregates, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness as I, mine, contained within the self, or contained by the self. The wrong view of self, personality view, gives rise to 62 types of wrong views that the Buddha outlined in the Brahmajala Sutta. Therefore, a stream enterer cannot hold any such wrong views anymore. Because of these qualities, the stream enterer is called one who has perfected right view. All stream enterers must realize 2 key insights. There's rebirth and the law of karma. Finally, the attainment of stream entry is a distinct event, meaning the stream enterer can always recall the time and place of that event. Thus, for example, if someone still has a degree of disrespect for the Sangha, doubts the existence of rebirth, or believes that the mind or consciousness, vijnana, is permanent, that person is certainly not a stream enterer. These standards are clearly defined in the suttas. If someone rejects these standards or claims they do not believe in them, it is another definite sign that the person is not a stream enterer, because all true noble ones respect the Buddha's teachings and draw inspiration for practice from them. For a once returner, Sakadami, first, all the signs of the stream enterer must be fully present in the once returner. Additionally, there is a significant reduction in sensual desire and ill will, craving and anger. This stage is difficult to define in terms of the exact amount of reduction, which is why there is little additional discussion about the once returner in this chapter. For instance, in the Anguttara Nikaya, there is a story of 2 brothers, Purana and Isiddhata, both confirmed by the Buddha to have attained once returnership. However, Purana lived a celibate life, while Isiddhata still engaged in sexual activities. It is difficult to precisely define the reduction of sensual desire in these cases. Again, only the Buddha could determine which stage of enlightenment someone had attained. For a non-returner, anagami, the signs are more clear-cut. As with the once returner, all the qualities of a stream enterer must be fully present in the non-returner. In addition, the 2 fetters of sensual desire and ill will have been completely eradicated. Craving and anger have ended. Therefore, a non-returner absolutely no longer engages in sexual thoughts or actions, and any hint of sexual desire in the mind is gone. If someone still shows any signs of sexual behavior or tendencies, that person is certainly not a non-returner. In the Buddha's time, only the Buddha could confirm the enlightenment of others. Even great arahants like Venerable Sariputta would ask the Buddha for clarification on such matters. However, while we cannot definitively know if someone has attained enlightenment, we can certainly know if someone has not attained a particular stage of enlightenment. Each of the 4 stages of enlightenment has distinct qualities, and if any of these qualities are absent in a person, they have not attained that stage. Recognizing non-enlightenment. For a non-returner, anagami, If anyone still harbors even a trace of anger, irritation, discontent, or ill will, that person is not a non-returner. For an arahant, the signs are even more evident. First, all the qualities of a stream enterer and a non-returner must be fully present in an arahant. Additionally, there are distinct qualities unique to an arahant, such as the 9 things an arahant cannot do, like accumulating wealth or intentionally killing. Furthermore, arahants possess a natural humility because they have eradicated all 3 types of pride. Another unique quality only found in arahants is fearlessness in the face of death. Arahants no longer fear death. Therefore, if you encounter a great monk who still holds on to personal wealth, exhibits pride, or fears death, you can be certain that they are not fully enlightened. In summary, these are the ways you can determine if someone has not yet attained a particular stage of enlightenment. However, some subtle defilements or wrong views may be so faint and refined that we may not easily recognize them, meaning they have not been entirely eradicated. Sometimes, these defilements are temporarily suppressed by meditation or willpower. For example, if we could observe the mind of a practitioner just after they emerge from deep meditation, their mind might appear bright and untainted, like that of a true arahant, making it difficult to distinguish. And you could be mistaken. For this reason, let me reiterate, only a Buddha can truly know if someone else has attained enlightenment. The rest of us, including ourselves, can only know if someone has not attained a stage of enlightenment based on the criteria we have learned from the Buddhist scriptures. The story of 2 young boys in a temple. This true story took place about 2 decades ago in a meditation center. 2 young boys, with little formal education, approached a meditation master and requested guidance in meditation. After receiving instruction for a few days, the 2 boys returned to report their meditation progress to the master, and what they said left the master astounded. Witnesses later recounted that the atmosphere in the temple was electric. These 2 boys, with seemingly extraordinary spiritual potential, had come to the meditation center of the Thai forest tradition, and they appeared to be nearing their enlightenment. Because of the impressive results of their meditation, the master became extremely excited and declared that the 2 young meditators had fully attained enlightenment. The other monks were equally overjoyed to see that 2 new arahants had appeared in the world. According to Theravada tradition, it is customary that lay people who attain full enlightenment should be ordained into the Sangha, as they could pass away at any moment. Therefore, the senior monk ordained the 2 young meditators that very day. Shortly afterward, one of the young arahants fell slightly ill and was taken to a doctor. The doctor recommended surgery. Not knowing that anesthesia would be used to prevent pain during the operation, the young arahant became extremely frightened. As we know, a true arahant has no fear, especially no fear of death. It became clear that this boy was not an arahant, and when further inquiries were made, it was revealed that the other boy was not an arahant either. Neither of them had attained complete enlightenment. If even a famous, accomplished teacher could be completely mistaken, it is easy for others to be similarly confused. Some people mistakenly believe that someone with great psychic powers must have also attained a high level of enlightenment, but this is not true. For example, the Buddha's cousin Devadatta had extraordinary psychic abilities due to meditation, but he wasn't even a stream enterer. He later lost all his powers and attempted to kill the Buddha. Psychic powers are not reliable indicators of enlightenment. Having psychic powers does not mean one is enlightened. In the Sunakata Sutta, a layperson named Sunakata, after hearing monks declare in the Buddha's presence that they had attained full enlightenment, approached the Buddha to ask whether all the monks' declarations were accurate. The Buddha replied that some were indeed true arahants, but others had not attained full enlightenment as they had claimed. This shows that even during the Buddha's time, there were people who falsely claimed enlightenment. For monks and nuns, making false declarations about their attainments is a violation of monastic rules. Thus, when someone wearing the monk's robe makes a false public statement about their spiritual attainment, they are deliberately breaking a rule of the Sangha, further casting doubt on their integrity. When establishing the monastic code, The Buddha recognized that people tend to overestimate their own attainments. Therefore, monks are advised to remain silent about their achievements and, if necessary, only disclose them to their direct teacher. As one bhikkhuni wisely said, "If you have attained enlightenment, do not tell anyone about it, or else you will spend the rest of your life trying to prove it." When practitioners reflect on their spiritual attainments, they should be clear about the signs and standards of each stage of enlightenment. It is essential not to overestimate oneself. Practitioners should carefully assess which qualities they possess and which they do not, and even if they feel confident, they should wait for many years to confirm whether their realization is truly stable without rushing to make declarations. Future experiences will naturally verify the maturity of their attainment. Continuous practice and experience are crucial, as illustrated by the following real-life example. The story of the monk who wasn't afraid of tigers. In 1980, at Putork Monastery, part of the Thai forest tradition Lum Thin, a monk named Tan Ajahn Juan shared this story with me. One afternoon, a monk ventured into a deep forest near a village. As per custom, the villagers expected that the monk would return to the village the next day for alms. So they prepared food offerings in keeping with the beautiful tradition of dana, offering. Monks often wandered into secluded areas to meditate in peace and spend the night. The villagers warned the monk about a fierce tiger in the forest that had killed many buffaloes and even a few villagers. The monk replied, "I am no longer afraid of death." It was likely that the monk believed he had fully realized enlightenment, like an arahant. The villagers were skeptical. "Show me where the tiger is." "I will meditate there tonight," the monk insisted. The villagers led him deep into the jungle, where tiger tracks were often found. The monk set up his mosquito net and told the villagers to return to the village. Impressed, the villagers left him there. Late at night, the ferocious tiger indeed appeared. The strange sounds gradually became more distinct, followed by the clear sound of the tiger's footsteps. Imagine the scene. The monk, sitting in meditation, likely practicing mindfulness of the breath, following the tradition of forest monks in northeastern Thailand, possibly focusing on Buddha with each inhalation and exhalation. But as the tiger approached, the monk likely panicked and began mentally chanting "ferocious tiger" instead of Buddha. The story goes that the monk fled in terror, shouting "ferocious tiger" all the way back to the village, waking the villagers with his cries of "ferocious tiger, ferocious tiger." According to monastic rules, monks and nuns are never supposed to run. Their robes are gently fastened and not secured with buttons like regular clothing, so running could cause their robes to fall off. However, it is said that this monk ran at full speed to escape, losing his robes and headgear along the way, arriving in the village wearing nothing but his bare body and head. The villagers never forgot the story of the monk who was not afraid of tigers. This example highlights that, despite the monk's earlier confidence, his behavior revealed he had not yet attained full enlightenment. If even experienced monks can misjudge their spiritual progress, it is easy for others to be similarly mistaken. Some people also mistakenly believe that those with great psychic abilities have attained high levels of enlightenment. But this is not necessarily true. For instance, the Buddha's cousin Devadatta possessed extraordinary psychic powers due to meditation, but he had not even reached the stage of stream enterer. He eventually lost all his powers and even attempted to kill the Buddha. Psychic powers are not reliable indicators of enlightenment. Just because someone has psychic powers does not mean they are enlightened. In the Sunakata Sutta, a layman named Sunakata, after hearing monks declare their full enlightenment in the Buddha's presence, approached the Buddha to ask whether their claims were true. The Buddha replied that while some had indeed attained arahantship, others had not attained the full enlightenment they claimed.